So we're here? Okay, perfect. So like I said, it's only about a 20-minute webinar, so it shouldn't tie you up too much. But it is, like I said, it's a new resource. So I want to make sure everyone knows how to use it and use the fullest potential. And it's kind of a combination of Overdrive and Hoopla, but it is a little bit easier to use than Overdrive. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware of what they can do. I will also be sending out the training manual that was given to us by Cantook, or by DeMark, who created Cantook. It's like 60 pages. It's got tons of screenshots and everything filled with a bunch of help if you do need help with everything. So there is all of that I will send in an email after the webinar. I also just put together like a 2-page just summary bullet points thing for everyone. So if you want to just talk to your staff and just let them know that this is what it is, or if you want to tape this or just put it somewhere near the circulation desk, it's there for you, or just forward it in an email to everyone, because there are some hyperlinks to sign-up pages if you need them. So those will be both sent out a few minutes after this webinar is done, and the recording will go up later this afternoon. I'm printing up whichever of the 4 webinars recordings are best. So Cantook Station, it's an odd named resource, but it was created by a company called DeMark, and it comes out of the initiative of Read Alberta eBooks. It's an initiative, just simply put, to support Alberta publishers, because we all know there's a couple big ones, and they've kind of monopolized most of the publishing field. But we have a fair amount of publishers in Alberta, and they have some really interesting content, and we want to support that. So it's actually being run province-wide, and it's being funded by the Alberta Municipal Affairs Public Library Services Branch, which I will shorten to PLSB for the rest of the webinar. It's a mouthful. So they're the ones who are in charge of selecting who built this, and they're the ones in charge of the catalog and purchasing. So none of that has to do with us or, the Marigold system, any of that. It is all up to PLSB. So when copies run out of books, or we increase or they're decreasing the catalog, that's all them. You can take a look at this page too if you do want to just find out a little bit extra information, but it's just kind of a synopsis there. So this, I'm just going to pull this up now, is what our site is going to be looking like. So the official launch date is the 16th, which is next Thursday. And we'll let anyone know if that changes. It's changed once, but they normally gave us a little bit more notice. So it looks like it's good to launch on the 16th. So the station itself is kind of personalized to each system, but like I said, it's province-wide. So the P system has their own one. The Marigolds will have their logo and their colors, but we all have the same catalog. So we are starting with a little over 1,000 ebooks, and it's only ebooks, and all of the ebooks are published by Alberta publishers. You have to download them to access them. There is no streaming ability with them like there is on Overdrive or Cloud Library. It is patron exclusive, just like Overdrive and Hoopla. Once your patron is in Polaris, they have an account, and all they have to do is come to peacelibrarysystem.cantookstation.com, click the sign in, and they'll be asked to log in with their barcode and their PIN. And I'm just going to pause the screen so I can log in and no one can steal my ID. There we go. So once you have logged in, it just changes to your name on the top, and the first time you log in, you'll want to go to account information and just put in your name and your email address. You also have loans and bookings, which is kind of like how it sounds. It's where your books that you've borrowed or have holds placed on are. Unclaimed loans are the books that you've borrowed but not downloaded yet. Active loans are the books that you've borrowed and downloaded. And then holds are the ones that you've placed. This can happen, if mostly predominantly is going to be if there's copies run out of copies. And I'll explain that in just one second. But you can see too, because we are sharing the whole catalog province-wide, there are smaller limitations. So you can only have 3 things on hold at a time compared to like Overdrive, which I believe is 10 or 20. And then loans, you can have up to 7 books out at a time. We also have a history section, so it'll track what you've borrowed before. I obviously haven't borrowed anything yet because it hasn't launched yet. And then reading list is just like a wish list that you have on Overdrive. This is good, like I said, because you only have, 3 holds at a time, that I can just hover over a book that I know that I want and just click the little plus button, and it's now going to be in my wish list. And now you can see it here. And then once, if I have availability open up, I can just come to my reading list and click it to borrow. So that we'll do. And so now we'll see I've borrowed it, but I haven't downloaded it. So if I go to loans and bookings, you're going to see now that it says one unclaimed loan on the top here because I've borrowed it but not downloaded it. And I will just pull up, I think it's my Gmail that I put it on. Oops, sorry. Once you borrow a book, the email that is on your account will send you an email saying, hey, you've borrowed this book, here is the link, and it's a static link. Let me just find it here. There we go. So this is for just a different book that I borrowed in another webinar. But so this is what you'll get. It'll look something like this. So say you have you've activated the loan for this and click this URL. You have 24 hours after you've borrowed a book to download it, and then if not, it goes back into the catalog. Now, how this is different from Overdrive and kind of like Hoopla is you can do simultaneous borrowing. So Hoopla has unlimited copies and we just get charged per copy. This Cantook station is a little bit different. So they will have 50 licenses, so 50 copies of a book, each book. So 50 of us can borrow Spirit Singer at the same time, or 45 of us, or however many. But once we've reached 50 borrows, whether or not that's one person at a time, or 5 people at a time, or 50 at a time, that book has to have more copies purchased, and that will be up to PLSB whether or not they want to purchase more copies. So when that happens, normally the borrow button won't be there. It'll say place a hold instead, and then you'll get a notification when that book is brought back into the catalog inventory. You'll get an email, and it'll give you 72 hours, I believe it is, so 3 days, to click the URL and download the book then. You'll also see there's a top titles, which now has the book that I've added in there. It's obviously not been that busy considering it hasn't officially launched yet. The catalog, though, is fiction and nonfiction books. You can see there's a whole list at the bottom here. There's obviously, it looks like there's a little bit more nonfiction. There's a fair amount of university presses that we have in the catalog now, but you can also just select catalog on the top here. And again, use the filtering on the left-hand panel, just like Overdrive. Recent releases, what audience, if you want fiction or nonfiction. But like I said, there is still a fair amount of fiction titles. There's over 300 of them. And it, again, looks just like Overdrive. You can just click borrow from here, or I can click on it to go into, the nitty-gritty details. There's, by the same author, which is normally series information, which is very helpful. I can get a quick excerpt. I can download it or stream that online. There we go. So you can see, the first 10 or so pages, or I can choose to download it instead. You'll also see all of the publishing and ISBN information and all that stuff here. You will notice, though, there's no rating information or anything. Track normally pulls it in from Goodreads and Novelist, and Overdrive has a rating system kind of built in that you can give your opinions on a book that you've read. Unfortunately, we don't have this on here, but that is just a chance for you guys to promote, Novelist and Goodreads, or Track. So, oh, that was one thing I wanted to mention as well. The searching. So when you try searching, instead of just being a title and an author, it also searches publishers, ISBNs, and the descriptions. So this is really good if you want to look for more key terms. If I don't know what book that I necessarily want, but I know I want it to be something to do with war. So I can just type in the term war, and it will search through the description, the publisher, the title, the author, and give me over 90 results here. So I can browse through and say, you know what, I can only borrow 7 at a time. I could just click add to list for the ones that interest me and not. I can also use the categories on the side to say, you know what, there's a lot of nonfiction in here, but I want to limit it to just fiction titles. So I just select fiction, and it drops down to 32 results. So that is all there. So once we have decided to borrow a book, whether it's here or in the actual item page, if you refresh the page before downloading it, you'll get this yellow bar at the top. And this number, it says 1, it'll update, if you have 2 or 3. So all you have to do is select it and download it. Now on your computer, it will download, and all of the files are called URL link, and it'll have, you see, bracket 2 because I've downloaded a file before. They all have the same link, whereas if you borrow from Overdrive, it normally has the title of the book as the file name. That's a little bit different on here. You need to have an Adobe ID set up, which is the same thing you really need for using your ebooks from Overdrive. So the Adobe ID, all you have to do is, it's hyperlinked in the handout that I'm going to send you, but you could just go to Google and just type in create an Adobe ID. It's free to create. It allows you to authorize up to 6 devices, and most likely if your patrons already use Overdrive, they already have this, so they don't really have to do anything. So once you've created an Adobe ID, this will allow you to download the book and open it on Adobe Digital Editions, and then you can plug in your Kobo device to your computer and transfer the ebook onto your Kobo. Or you can also, once you have an Adobe ID, oops, I will just open this here for us. Once you have an Adobe ID, you can download the books onto a tablet or smartphone. So Cantook Station doesn't have a specific app. Overdrive has the Overdrive app and Hoopla has the Hoopla app, but Cantook is a small, it's a province initiative. It's relatively new. So you have to use already pre-existing e-reader apps. So there are 3 that are suggested, and I'm just showing them here. So one of them is called Bluefire Reader. The first time you launch it, it will actually, before you even get into the library, prompt you to enter an Adobe ID. So you can't download books and start getting error messages. Oh, sorry, what is the borrowing period for items, and can it be changed? It can't be changed because it's province-wide and the catalog's fairly limited right now anyways. The borrowing period that I know of is 3 weeks. It's the basic default. Patrons can't go into their settings like Overdrive and change it, unfortunately. It's really up to the PLSB. So if there is, a bigger demand for people wanting to change how long they can borrow something, they can let us know. We can pass that along. It's also nice that you don't necessarily have to worry about, returning a book early or, borrowing it for 2 weeks instead of 3 weeks to help so everyone can get access to it, because it is simultaneous borrowing. So once you've borrowed it, that copy has been borrowed. People can keep borrowing the 49 other copies, but it's still got the total number of 50 copies. But it is an option to change it in the admin accounts, which we don't have, but or we don't have access to. It's just really wouldn't be unfair for us to go in and say, you know what, actually all of our patrons have, for Peace Library System, get 3 months to read an ebook. It wouldn't be fair to everyone else, right? But like I said, simultaneous borrowing doesn't make it quite as much of an issue. Very good question, though. Sorry, yeah, so Bluefire Reader is one of the apps. The first time you launch it, I've opened it before, so I don't think it'll do it. It will prompt you before you enter the library, which is going to show up in a second. There we go. So before it even lets you get here, it will say, what is your Adobe ID? So you can't get in here and, accidentally download a book and start getting error messages the way you do on Overdrive. That's not a possibility. You have to have it authorized with an Adobe ID. If you do ever want to change it, if you give a device to someone else or whatever, all you have to do is go to the info section, and the very thing at the very, very first section is the application is authorized with this Adobe ID. So I can deauthorize it and then reauthorize it with a new one if needed. So this is just one of the, there we go, just one of them. You can delete the books from your excuse me, from the library once you've done them, finished with them. Just select the 3 dots on the top right and hit delete items, and then the little X's will pop up on top. The reason I don't like this app is because you can delete it, but it doesn't return the book. And like I said, it's not too much of an issue because we have simultaneous borrowing on Cantook Station, but we want to get patrons in the habit of returning things when they're done with them, because Overdrive and Cloud Library don't have simultaneous borrowing, and most people don't have library degrees, so they're not going to be, keeping track of what does which. So it is a fairly simple app to use if it is something for you, but like I said, there doesn't appear to be a way to do early returns. So I will close that. The second one that they were recommending was Bakari. I'm a little bit hesitant about this one because the first webinar I was doing, it kept crashing. But it is a fairly straight, simple app when it does launch, and it's fairly simple to use. All you do is hit the menu on the top left and go to Settings. And right on the top is Activate this device and Add account, and you just type in your Adobe ID. And then all you have to do is click that URL link that you get in the email. I'll just pull this up here. Just click this and it'll show me to, there we go. And it starts downloading the file from there. And I could just open it in my Bakari. And the last one I want to show is Aldico. This is the one I would actually suggest. I found this one was the simplest and easiest to use, and I honestly think it's a lot prettier than the other ones. So you have the bookshelf. This is your home page, and it's laid out kind of like the exact same way the Overdrive app is, just panel on the left. And when you open it the first time, it'll just ask you to log in with an email or a Facebook account or whatever. And all you have to do is go to the About section, and DRM accounts is at the very top. So this is the one that's authorized, but if I want to change it, just hit the 3 dots on the top right and hit add, and I can add in a new Adobe ID account. So it's fairly straight, simple like that. And the last thing I want to make sure everyone is aware of, like I said, it's basically, we're almost done now, is the help section on the website. So it's actually pretty thorough. There's, I haven't found a question that I've asked and haven't been able to find in here yet. So there's startup guides. That's where you're going to spend most of your time. And iOS and Androids are going to be your most common, but then you might come into contact with the Kobo every once in a while, and maybe your computer. So iOS's, they basically work almost the same as the Android. All the 3 apps I just showed you were available for free on both the devices, so there shouldn't be too much of an issue with that. And they're filled with screenshots and just like very straight, simple instructions. The really nice thing is instead of hiding, the different app instructions everywhere or putting them all at once and confusing people, they've set it up so there's a default one set, Aldico. So this is the one that I had just mentioned. So this is how you download it, and this is how you set it up. But I can say, you know what, actually we're just going to be using Bluefire, and it's going to, oh, that's good to know. They still have some French in there. It'll just show you Bluefire instead, and like I said, the first time you log in, this is what you're going to see instead of the library. So it prompts you right away to enter your Adobe ID. But if you do have any questions, you are very welcome to send me an email or give me a phone call. I would really recommend going over all of this with your staff, or at least letting them know that all this is here and suggesting that they look at the help section or look at the webinar recording or look at the handout before next Thursday when it does launch. I'm also working to have a Library Aware, a brochure up on Library Aware for you guys, and I will send out a notice on pecans when I'm done that, but it will definitely be out before the 16th when everything launches. So just kind of the last few bullet points I want to make sure everyone is aware. I've touched on this, but I just want to make sure these are the important things. So it is patron exclusive. Once your patron is added to Polaris, they have the ability to log in here. They log in with their barcode and their PIN, and they go to their account information and add their email. It is only ebooks. The initiative right now, at least, is starting with just ebooks. Simultaneous borrowing of up to 50 copies. So if 50 people want to borrow the same book at the same time, that's great. You can all do that. But once those 50 copies are borrowed and downloaded, their borrow button will change to hold, and it will be up to PLSB to purchase more copies of that. You need to have an Adobe ID set up to download the ebooks and transfer them onto your Kobo devices and to use it on the app. Most people generally don't just read ebooks solely on their computer. So I would just, in general, make sure that your patrons are aware that they should set it up instead of not setting it up and then in 2 months trying to transfer everything to a Kobo and getting error messages. The catalog is launching with a little over 1,000 ebooks, but it is province-wide. So every patron of any library in Alberta has access to these books. And it is download-only reading. So you cannot stream the books the way you can on Overdrive or Cloud Library. It does require you to download them and read them on Adobe Digital Editions on your computer or onto one of the apps on your e-reader, on your tablets or smartphones. Does anyone have any questions? All right. If you don't, you guys are welcome to go enjoy the rest of your Friday. I hope you have a wonderful end of the week weekend. Like I said, I will be sending you an email with the 2 handouts, and the webinar recording will be going up at the end of the day. I will send out a notice on Pecans for that, and I will send out a notice when the Library Aware brochure is ready. Ray also sent out some bookmarks, I believe, that with their marketing material on it that you should be getting in the next week or so. But if you do have any questions, give me a phone call or send me an email, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on my email, my phone calls for sure on the 15th and 16th right when it launches. But other than that, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
You are very welcome.